27 years ago, researchers entered a cave in southeastern France. And what they found inside was stunning. There was hundreds of drawings kept in pristine condition over thousands of years. You see, art and storytelling in a time where the key objective was likely survival. And that means that to humans, stories mattered then and they matter now. Today, we're going to talk about stories. And with me today, I have two amazing storytellers, Ben and Sam. Sam, you're a creative director here at Hillsong Church and have been here for a few years. And Ben has been in the industry for 20 plus years. He's an executive producer at Southland Studios and the CEO, and you're also the head of all of film and television at Hillsong Church, and the head of programming at Hillsong Channel. Is that right?
Yes, lots of hats.
That's right, a lot of hats. Myself, I'm Sebastian Strand. I'm the oversight for the Australia branch of our film and TV teams, as well as creative director. So, Ben, Southland Studios.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that and what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. We just recently launched Southland Studios out of a desire to bring inspirational, value-based, faith-friendly stories into the mainstream film industry. So just recently launched it. We were very fortunate to be able to partner with Kingdom Story on a movie that just came out on October 1st this year called The Jesus Music, which is in theatres in the US. And then starting that ride of, figuring out how to get in the feature film business, which is all new for us. And we've done a lot of television here at Hillsong. We've been a part of some projects in the film space, but now we are diving in the deep end, as they say, to be able to make this something that will be long-lasting.
That's awesome, very exciting. And I love seeing like the new trailers that are coming out. You really feel like you're part of something really big. Yeah, it's awesome. Forbes wrote that storytelling is compelling because our brains are hardwired to process and store the information in the form of stories. So Sam, I want to ask you, why is storytelling important and why do you love it?
Well, storytelling, it's like you said, they've found it since the beginning of time, and it's like oral tradition and passing down the narratives of like our ancestors and older generations. And I think what I love about it is like that it puts you into it gives you insight into like pockets of different human experiences, and like you can be who you are with your own experience in your own life, but you can be positioned somewhere like on the other side of the world with someone that you've never met before and understand them and learn from them and take on like their journeys.
What about you, Ben?
Like Sam said, from the beginning of time, I also think, yes, passing it down from generation to generation, but, there's nothing probably more powerful than maybe music, which is storytelling in the fact that it can arrest your soul. It can speak to an inner depth, within us. And it also can teach you too. I love the power of storytelling and its ability to be able to humanize people from all different walks of life, to be able to share in someone's background and their journey is incredibly powerful for us to be able to understand each other and to have empathy and compassion for one another.
Right. As storytellers, we hear a lot about the hero's journey. For those who aren't familiar, what is the hero's journey and is it essential to storytelling?
Yeah, I think is it essential? I think there's stories that don't apply, the rules or the common narrative of the hero's journey. But, for the most part, you can find the hero's journey in, a lot of stories. And, simply put, because I think you could probably do a whole masterclass on teaching, and I'm not a screenwriting teacher about the hero's journey, but you could simplify it by saying, the hero in his familiar world who's longing for something more, goes on an adventure, and on that adventure, the next stage is that he learns a valuable lesson, and that can often come through conflict or revelation, or inner conflict. And through that lesson, he has to win a victory, and as he overcomes that victory, and he's able to, through applying that newfound revelation or that lesson that he's learned, he's able to go on and then return home transformed. And the hero's journey for us is a lot of what we deal with just in life in general. I think we're always, with the way that God constructed us, is that we're always longing for something more. And for us, that's purpose, it's meaning. We're often finding ourselves on these adventures. And, for anyone that's gone on an internal venture, you often find it's not too far before you hit that first conflict or that first lesson that you have to learn. But it's by those lessons in life that we we find the tools to overcome what they are and we find victory in those, and we come back home transformed. And essentially that is the construct of what the hero's journey is. What I love about it is that you can have multiple journeys and adventures throughout life, but you don't often come home from that adventure transformed unless you have to overcome something, which is that lesson learned along the journey.
Right, it's interesting. So that's almost that the conflict and the desire to reach something, and you have to actually fight for it.
You have to overcome it, and life's full of lessons, and it's within those times, and I think we've all experienced them, you know, in life, that sometimes the best lessons you've learned is the ones that you've had to kind of wage war against, or you've had to walk, you know, through fire for, and they create who you are and they make you a better person and they transform you essentially to be able to tackle new things and to be able to learn lessons and then be victorious over that, and then share that with others as well to be able to help them on their journey.
Sam, hero's journey, is it essential?
I'd say it absolutely would be essential for if you're a filmmaker and you want to make movies. It's important to know story structure and how to craft your acts and how to take a character on a journey. But I think it's also it's one of those classic things. You've got to know something to know how to break it or turn it into your own something that expresses your own voice. So I know there's a lot of Enneagram 4s out there that want to go out and make something individual and creative, and it's that's that person's film or whatever. But you can't just go out there and expect that you're going to craft something that is timeless or compelling without knowing what's come before. And there's a reason that structures like the hero's journey have had the life that they've had. You've got Star Wars, you've got Harry Potter, you've got Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and all of those timeless adventures where the hero character goes on a journey and they overcome these huge obstacles, and we all love them. We lap them up, and we will continue to lap up those stories. So it actually takes knowing how that works to know how you can shift it and shape it into your own piece.
Yeah, that's great.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard a lot of storytellers and screenwriters and so on write that the desire and that conflict is what actually drives the whole story. We're keen to just get to the success, but it's actually in that conflict that the story is shaped, that it's actually okay to kind of, if you're writing something, to be a little bit cruel to your main character, because that's where they're learning and that's where the viewer goes with him. Robert McKee, a famous Hollywood screenwriter, wrote that desire is the blood of the story. It's not a shopping list, but it's a core need that, if satisfied, would stop the story in its tracks. I find that really interesting. Sam, writer's block, is that a thing?
Yes. I think it takes on a lot of different forms. It's just general creative block. There's burnout. You could just be exhausted and not able to take on what's in front of you. I go through it. It's probably notably once or twice every year I just find myself just struggling to do what needs to be done, what my job is, or what or even just if I'm doing something else, it's just I just feel empty. And
it's hard.
It's hard, yeah.
How do you get through that when you're facing that? Because deadlines are real, right? You don't have the luxury of just.
Well, it's I feel like there's different categories of all of that. One, you have the deadline in front of you and you're just empty, and in those times that's you have to just push through and figure it out, and that's where you can rely on those people around you and the support network that you have and other creatives and stuff, and you say, hey, I've got nothing, because there's chances are someone's going to have something, or someone's going to be able to bring something out of you that you didn't know that you had in the tank. And then there's other times where you just probably have to stock take and think oh, why am I struggling right now? And look internally and see that maybe I just need a rest. Maybe I need to go out and get inspired again. And I think it's just a process of learning yourself and learning what makes you tick.
Yeah. I think sometimes with some of the people that I've spoken to who, write and create a lot as well, is that sometimes the block will come out of a lack of experience in that area, that they find it hard to identify with the story that they're writing and to put themselves in that place. And you often find that a lot with maybe younger storytellers who are trying to tackle a story of a character in a stage of life that they've never experienced or never known anyone to experience, and therefore they can't write out of a position of understanding or empathy or compassion, and therefore they're trying to figure out what it is. And I think it's it's vitally important when writer's block does happen, from my experience, is to really absorb yourself in the world of the protagonist and the story that you're trying to tell. I think if you're not equipped as a storyteller to understand all the different layers that go into what is required to tell that story properly, you're constantly going to come up against not knowing what to do, right? And then that anxiety builds up, right? Where you're like, I don't know what to do, which can be incredibly frustrating when you've got an oversight or a deadline and you've got to deliver by 2 weeks and you're trying to figure out what to do. So yeah, I would say it's definitely real. We see a lot of people, don't we, Sam, struggle with that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're anything like me, it can be a spiral, and it's like it's hard to pull yourself out of, because you get caught in your own thoughts in your own head, and then you think, oh, I can't do it, and that makes it harder for you to do it. So yeah, that's where it's like you're having people around you that you can lean on, important. And like it is important, because it's filmmaking, and it's not a one-man job. It's the whole team of people.
Collaboration's key, hey?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Next up, we're going to talk about storytelling and faith, so we'll see you in a minute.